In this video, I will show you how to teach Cursor or any AI coding assistant about third-party libraries or docs. I will go through a simple three-step process that will eliminate most of the errors you run into and make your building experience much better. Large language models like ChatGPT and Claude have a training cutoff date, so naturally they don't know about any new libraries. For example, if I ask Claude if it knows about DeepSeek R1, which of course just came out recently this year, it's going to hallucinate and make something up. And for popular frameworks like Next.js, it's constantly getting updated. So even if the AI knows about an old version of it, it can quickly get out of date. Let's look at a simple example of this. Suppose we want to use structure output from OpenAI to build a custom capability inside our app. If you go to the official docs, you can see actual code samples. Here we see that OpenAI recommends using something like Zod to define schema, and OpenAI also already has the Zod response format helper function to help us do that. A couple other things to notice is it's using the beta version of the OpenAI API, and it has the parse function, which would already parse the results, so you don't have to parse it manually again. These are very handy and useful features that already exist in the OpenAI API. Now, of course, if we go back to Cursor, or in this case, any AI coding assistant, if we just ask the default AI how to use OpenAI structure output in TypeScript, you can see that the answer it gives is either incorrect or outdated. In this case, it uses the interface, it does not use Zod as recommended. Overall, it's just a wrong implementation. It's also using GPT-4 Turbo Preview, which has since been deprecated. Now in Cursor, there are a couple ways that you can get around it. For example, you might use the @docs feature, which is triggered by just typing @docs, and then you can search for the documentation you're looking for, in this case OpenAI, which I have already included, so it's not suggesting it. But even by doing so, the answer is still incorrect. It's not using Zod. It's again defining its own user interface. It's not using beta, uh, and it's actually using 3.5 Turbo, which is a really bad choice. And it's using JSON object, which is the old way of doing this. Now, using this code might work, but it's going to introduce TechDat into your code base. Another option you might have considered is using the @web capability, which lets the AI browse the web and find more up-to-date information. In this case, it does perform a little better. It uses Zod, but it makes up this Zod to JSON schema library, which doesn't really exist. And again, it doesn't use the beta version of the OpenAI API, uses GPT-4, and still using JSON schema. And on top of that, it returns a bunch of other unrelated long-term results. None of these methods really work that well. Let's go back and take a look at the proper way to do it, or at least the way I found to be the most effective. The first step is actually going to Perplexity, and we'll just use the same prompt. How do I use OpenAI structure output in TypeScript? It's going to go off and do a quick web search, and Perplexity is exceptionally good at finding the most up-to-date forums or discussions about the topic. So as you can see, it recommends using Zod and the Zod response format, just like it was in the OpenAI documentation. It uses the beta version of the OpenAI API, uses a newer version of GPT-4o. Now we would probably want to convert this into GPT-4o mini, and it uses the parse function as well. So overall, the information here is much better, but this is just the start. Now we need to take this documentation and test this script very quickly using AI. To test this script, we're going to use a real project I'm working on as an example. I have it open in Cursor. Basically, the goal of the project is to pull the most recent popular posts in certain subreddits and use OpenAI to analyze these posts to understand what people are talking about and categorize them in using different topics. So in order to achieve this functionality, we want to first test that the docs are working, and then we're going to integrate that into the actual code base. So let's take a look at how to do that. Back in Cursor, I'm going to open a new composer window and use this prompt to create that testing script to validate things are working. Give me a standalone TypeScript that use OpenAI structure output to categorize some Reddit posts. The analysis should determine if the post is related to a list of topics, and each topic has a brief description. Use dummy data for all data necessary. Again, I want this to be just a standalone TypeScript that has nothing to do with the rest of my project, just to make sure that the documentation itself is working. And I'm going to provide the code snippet from from Perplexity. So I'm going to copy this, come back to cursor, paste it here, and submit. So the AI is just making its way through creating this test script for me. I'm using the agent mode because it's more convenient. It will automatically fix linter errors, but you can do this manually using the manual composer workflow as well. Okay, we're just going to install the OpenAI and Zod, and let's see if we can run the script. But before we do that, let's take a quick look at the script first. So here we can see it's using Zod and the Zod response format, which is great. Let's take a look at the API calls making. It's using the beta version and parsing it and using for all mini, which is great. Everything looks good so far. So let's try running this. Okay, we have a response back. Let's take a look. The first post. New AI model beats human champions in the latest gaming tournament. And the response we got back for technology, it matched, so it's related. And for science, interesting choice. So we can actually play around with confidence. In this case, I guess it could be related to science as well. It's of course related to gaming. With a brief explanation, the content is primarily focused on gaming, so of course related. Zero confidence for politics, so it's not related. This is exactly what we're looking for. So now we have this working in a test environment. We can finally be confident to use this as a reference and integrate it into our actual code base. Okay, let's go back to our PRD and we will continue with the next section, 3.5, analyze Reddit posts. There's a couple of sub-steps here. It's also good practice to take one step at a time. In this case, let's just do the first two steps first, classification and concurrent execution, since they're related. So we're just going to copy this section and paste it into Composer and tell it to 1 and 2 of step 3.5. And we're going to tell it to reference the code snippet inside the reference doc we just created, which is post analyzer. Let's go. While the AI agent is working, let's take a quick look at what we have here. We have the Reddit posts, and we're trying to categorize these Reddit posts. Okay, seems like it's done. And now we're going to do the next part, top of post integration. Okay, so there's a quick issue. Earlier, the reference doc had some hard-coded topics inside it, so I told it to remove it. But now it's creating its own topics instead of using our predefined topics. So I'm just going to tell the AI to use our predefined topics. Yep, just telling it to don't create new topics, use predefined topics inside the app. All right, let's take another look. Go to ChatGPT and let's wait for it to load. Perfect. As we can see, now these top Reddit posts are being categorized. Exactly what we're looking for. So let's just make sure it works in the other subreddit as well. Perfect. So let's just make sure it's fairly accurate. Deep research replicated within 12 hours. The one thing I don't like is that it seems to be adding these topics even if it's not super confident. So we can just correct that behavior. Only categorize the topic if the confidence score is high enough. All right, it's done. Let's go back and take a look. And go back home, refresh the page. All right, seems to be more accurate now, but I actually want to see the confidence level. So let's add that to the badge. All right, it seems like it's finished. Let's go check out the updated version and refresh the page. Go to ChatGPT coding. Let's wait for it to load. Perfect. It's categorizing the posts and filtering by confidence score. And on top of that, it's showing me what the confidence score is, which is very nice. Of course, we want to validate that it's actually working for the other subreddit as well. So let's go there. Now we're in the OpenAI subreddit. Great, it's working here as well. So the next step is to add caching and data persistence. That way I don't have to run the OpenAI API and incur costs every time, but we'll cover that in the next video. As a quick recap, we've integrated the OpenAI API into our custom app to analyze Reddit posts. We saw that the default chat, as well as the add docs and add web functionalities, didn't really provide the most accurate and correct version of OpenAI APIs. Instead, we took a different approach. We went to Perplexity to find the most up-to-date documentation. We then used that as a reference to create a single isolated test script to test the integration. And only when that's working, we use that code snippet as a reference to integrate it into our custom app. And by doing so, we're able to get a much smoother experience. I know this is a little bit slower than just trying to one-shot it, but believe me, this will save you so much time from debugging in the long run. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is a new channel and I'm really looking for feedback. So please comment below if you have topics that you want me to cover. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter, link is in the bio.